Hey, what's going on, guys? Matt DeBary, dogpost.com here. It's Wednesday morning, so another edition of the Dog Post recruiting chat update, whatever you want to call it. Thank you for listening. If you watched my video last week, not a ton of updates. Obviously, we're in the middle of the football season. Recruits are focused on their high school team, trying to win a state championship. And of course, the staff is trying to improve upon a 5-0 season so far. But there is some recruiting news out there that I'm going to get to in just a second. So I'm going to share some notes on some 2020 targets and then break down the 2020 class as it stands today. So some of the first few notes that I got earlier this week, I asked about five-star tight end Darnell Washington. He took a visit to Florida this past weekend, reached out to some sources there, and they said that the visit went really well. They had a really good time. Obviously, Florida beat Auburn in the Swamp. Georgia had their big recruiting weekend against Notre Dame. This was Florida's big recruiting weekend where they had a ton of their top targets in town. And lucky for them, they ended up winning the game. It was a great atmosphere. Big win for Florida. And, guys like Darnell Washington were on campus. And, it was a big visit. I heard he had a really good time. But I do think that Georgia is still the team to beat. He was in Athens for the big barbecue water balloon fight weekend in late July. I heard that visit went extremely well. And ever since then, I have predicted Darnell Washington to Georgia. Ever since late July, I saw him personally that first week in September and talked to him out in Las Vegas. I got the same impression there that I think Georgia leads. And then obviously he took his official visit to Georgia a couple weekends ago when Georgia hosted Notre Dame. We got a ton of pictures up on Dog Post of Darnell Washington with Carson Beck, Theo Johnson, and other guys. So ever since late July, I have said on Dog Post that I believe Darnell Washington is trending towards Georgia, and I think Georgia is in the lead. After this Florida visit, I still feel the same way. I think Florida might have gotten back into the race because when I spoke to Darnell, it was Georgia, Miami, Tennessee, and he threw in Alabama and Penn State in there as a top 5. But I do think Georgia has a comfortable lead over Miami and Tennessee. After this Florida visit, who knows? I think Florida is back in the mix. I don't think they lead or anything like that. I don't think they're a serious threat to Georgia. But it happened. It was a very good visit, and we'll see if he goes back. I asked my source over there if he had other visit plans for the next month or so, next few weeks, and he said maybe an unofficial visit to Miami. So we'll see how that goes. I think he does have his official visit to Tennessee lined up in December. But again, right now, after everything I'm hearing, I still think that Darnell Washington is Georgia's to lose, and I think they have a nice little lead right now. So we'll see. He's not going to make a decision anytime soon. I think it'll be at an All-American game in late December, early January, whenever it is. But I think that's when he'll make his final announcement. Right now, I think Georgia would be the pick if he had to make it today, and I think that in the end, Georgia will sign Darnell Washington. So he was at Florida this weekend. I still think Georgia leads. Another guy I reached out to for some notes was five-star linebacker Noah Sewell out of Utah, and they only have 2 regular season games left, which I thought was really interesting. I asked the coach, who their biggest rival was, because I'm trying to go up there, fly up, and try to see him because I do think Georgia is in that good a position. Now, we don't fly just anywhere to see random kids. If we're going to spend the money and go out there, we have to feel pretty good that the kid's going to Georgia. So I feel really, really good that Georgia could land Noah Sewell, and I heard more about that yesterday. So I'm looking up flight plans to go see him. He's got 2 regular season games left, one I guess tomorrow, and then one next Wednesday or Thursday. Won't be able to make it out there, but once the playoffs come around, definitely gonna try to go out and see him. I think it's a Georgia Oregon battle right now, and I don't think that's the only Georgia Oregon battle for a 5-star, but he does have family ties. His brother plays at Oregon. He's got another brother that plays in Nevada. They're West Coast guys. But Georgia's made him a top target since offering, I think it was on Valentine's Day, and they've flown out there to see him twice in the evaluation period, maybe even more than that. So he is a top target. He was in Athens for multiple days in June. That's when I started hearing that Georgia was a serious candidate to land him. He was in town for the Notre Dame game. That was his official visit. He didn't get back to Utah until Monday. So that shows you where he is on Georgia's board and how important he is to Georgia in this 2020 class. So just reiterating what I heard a couple days ago, Georgia's still very much in the mix. I think Georgia's the team trending right now for him, and if anyone can get him away from the West Coast and away from Oregon, I do think it's Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, and this Georgia staff. So definitely another guy to keep a close eye on moving forward. We're going to try to go see him once the playoffs start out there in Utah. So another guy who I think is going to really come down to Georgia and Oregon, and that's Keeley Ringo. He told me when I went to Las Vegas, same day I saw Darnell Washington, I saw Keeley Ringo, spoke to him, and he said, Oregon was my favorite team growing up. Love the colors, love the atmosphere, love everything about Oregon. But he's been to Georgia too many times for me to think that anyone else is leading. I think Georgia leads for Keeley Ringo above Oregon. I'm not ready to say that about Noah Sewell. I think it's kind of 50-50 right now, but I think Georgia is the team kind of with some momentum and the team trending. But with Keeley, I think Georgia's been the team to beat for a while now. And while there has been a little bit of Oregon talk lately, Keeley was not able to make it for the Notre Dame game. He originally planned to be there. He did not end up making it out. We'll see if he shows up to another game this fall, but that would be big because I do think Georgia has the lead with Keeley Ringo. Would like to see him get back on campus one more time, at least before the season ends. But we'll see how that goes. Right now, he is very focused on his team. He plays for one of the best teams in Arizona. They're looking to make another state championship run. They probably will. They're a really, really good team. But Keeley Ringo is so explosive. He's such a good player. He's one of the best players that I've covered in the last few years. Same with Darnell Washington. Those guys are legit five-star guys. And I have really high expectations when I see these kids play who are either committed to Georgia or being targeted by Georgia, because obviously Georgia's going after the best in the country, so that's what I expect out of them. And both those guys prove that they are five stars for a reason. Again, I think Georgia leads for Darnell Washington. I think they've got momentum with Noah Sewell, and I think they still lead for Keeley Ringo above Oregon. So that's the five-star update that I've got. And again, if I miss anything or y'all have more questions, whenever you're listening to this, make sure to jump on Dog Post or on Twitter. Shoot me a question, I'll get back to you. So that was my five-star update. I do want to break down the 2020 class. If you haven't seen one of these videos or haven't been on Dog Post in a minute, definitely want to make sure you guys are updated. So quarterback, they got their guy Carson Beck, having a tough senior season, not going to lie. Took his team to a state title last year as a junior. Lost a lot of guys. The offensive line is not great. He does not have a lot of great receivers throwing to him. Throwing to. So he's definitely had a little bit of a struggle, but the arm isn't getting any weaker. Georgia loves his arm. They love his mind. They think he's Jake Fromm with a stronger arm. That's what I've heard. Not sure I'm all in on that, but he's a good player. There's a reason they like him. There's a reason he rose in the standings in the offseason, but definitely having a tough senior season. But, that's Georgia's guy. I think they're going to stick with him in the end. I do think that there's an opportunity to bring in another quarterback in this class. I think it might be the grad transfer route somewhere, somehow. I think they're going to bring in another guy, but I don't think they're going to sign a 2020 freshman out of high school. All of them are committed by now. It's not really a great quarterback class, 2020, when you look at it across the country. Not a whole lot of guys to choose from, and when numbers are so tight like they are and you're filling them with high 4 stars and 5 stars, they're not just going to go sign any random low 4-star quarterback. It's got to be their guy to go along with that. We'll see what they do there. Running back, they've got 5-star Kendall Milton on board. Zach Evans, nothing really new there. Georgia, LSU, A&M are the 3 teams I'm still hearing the most about. Del McGee was at his school 2 Fridays ago, I believe, so he is still a top target for Georgia. Kind of a head case. There's a lot of drama going on off the field, on the field. Yeah, he's a guy that they're going to have to, make sure they handle a little bit. But outstanding player. He's the top running back in the country. Uber talented. But he's definitely a guy that you've got to keep an eye on and make sure he's doing the right thing. He's not trying to knock on the kid. Just it is what it is, and I think he's proven that so far. But if they don't land Zach Evans, Marshawn Lloyd, South Carolina commitment, still in the mix. E.J. Smith, son of Emmitt Smith, was in town a couple weeks ago for Notre Dame. We'll see. Don Chaney is another running back they keep in touch with. He's committed to Miami. Dejan Edwards down in Colquitt County, a low 4-star guy they still keep in touch with. Tank Bigsby, I think, is firmly committed to Auburn. We'll see. I'm still not sure that's 100% over if Georgia starts to push for him next month in December. So Still some options out there. Georgia's going to get themselves another solid back to go along with Kendall Milton. Just don't know exactly who that is right now. At receiver, they got 3 guys: Justin Robinson, who's got some size; Corey Wren, shorter slot guy with speed; Marcus Rosemy, Reggie Brown type. I think he reminds me of Reggie Brown. A lot of people who didn't watch Reggie Brown will say Calvin Ridley. Well, not Calvin Ridley. Riley Ridley's more of a comparison there. But he's a guy with decent speed, gets like great hands. But he's 6'2", something like that. Not the biggest guy, not the smallest guy, but he does everything well. Anyway, those are the 3 guys. If they make room for one more, it's going to be Arian Smith, track star, one of the top receivers in the country. His film is incredible, out of Lakeland, Florida. We'll see. If Corey Wren decides to look elsewhere, then I definitely think they're going to put pedal to the metal and try to get Arian Smith. If they can make room for him, he's a take, no doubt. I think he's too fast, too explosive to not find a way to make room for him in this class. So they've got 3 on board. Might take one more. If they do, I think the top target is Arian Smith. To tight end, Eric Gilbert's a guy who I think is trending elsewhere. I think that's an Alabama-Clemson battle. I think Alabama's probably in the best position for him right now. He hasn't been to Athens a long time. I do think they still keep in touch with him. He's been a top Georgia target for a long time, although he might be trending elsewhere today. I don't think Georgia's completely out of it just yet, but I do think they're in a better spot for Darnell Washington, who I think they lead for, and Theo Johnson. A lot of pressure to stay up north, Michigan, Iowa, Penn State. But if anyone can get him to come down here, it's Todd Hartley, who's made him a top target. He was in Athens for multiple days for G-Day in April, and then he was, again, back from the Notre Dame game. So he's not a guy who's just now being on the radar since the summer or anything like that. Georgia staff has loved Theo, and he was a take in the spring, he was a take in the summer, and he's a take whenever. So he's another top guy to keep an eye on. Georgia's in the mix. Not going to say they lead, but they are firmly in the mix and have a little bit of momentum right now. Offensive line, they got their guys there. They got 5 guys, 2 tackles, Broderick Jones, Tate Radledge, 2 guards, Chad Lindbergh, Joshua Braun, and then they've got their center and Cedric Van Pran. So they're done there unless anything crazy happens. Defensive line, a guy I reached out about, Zykevius Walker out of Schley County, will take his official visit to Auburn first week in November, then take one to Alabama. Still think it's a Georgia-Florida battle. Florida's been recruiting him longest and harder than anyone that I've been told. But after working out for the Georgia staff, I think it was in June, maybe early in the summer, that's when Georgia started to really turn up the heat. If they keep pushing, I think Georgia's going to end up getting him. But Florida is absolutely right there. They've done a great job. There's no doubt about that. So Georgia-Florida battle, he has not set his official visit to Georgia in stone yet. They don't know when it's going to happen. Watch for not late December, early December. I think when Nazir Stackhouse and a few of those other defensive linemen will be in town for their official visit. Watch that weekend for Zykevius Walker. Jordan Birch, 5-star guy, Georgia, South Carolina, Clemson. He doesn't talk to the media. I don't have anything new on him. South Carolina is the local school. It's kind of a pipeline from Hammond to South Carolina. Will Muschamp's son was the quarterback there. They've got Alex Huntley committed, a defensive tackle, plays right next to Jordan Birch at Hammond. He's going to Carolina, so lots of pressure to go to South Carolina. Clemson is probably the #1 program in college football right now, so obviously they're still in the mix. And then Georgia, he was at Georgia in May for the scavenger hunt. He was back in July for the barbecue weekend. Not sure if he's been to Athens since, but those are 2 big recruiting weekends, and Georgia was able to get him on campus both times. So Georgia's still in the mix. Georgia, Clemson, South Carolina battle there. We talked about Noah Sewell. He is the top linebacker target. They've got 5-star Mikael Sherman already on board. Likely just going to take one more, and I think that will be for Noah Sewell. In the secondary, a lot like linebacker. I don't know how many they're going to take in this class. It could be just 2. They've got Jalen Kimber, 4-star cornerback committed out of Texas. And then the next guy is Keeley Ringo, the 5-star that I spoke about earlier, who I think Georgia leads for. So I'm not sure they're going to take a safety in this class. They're in a really good spot for 5-star safety James Williams in 2021. So I think that is the class where they take a lot of linebackers, a lot of defensive backs, especially at safety. So I think those are 2 positions where they're going to really load up on in 2021 and only take 2, maybe 3, depending on who they are in this 2020 class. So Again, nothing new. I don't think Georgia's going to get any commitments anytime soon or anything like that. I think everyone who wanted to make a decision made it before the season. Now they're focused on winning a state title, all that good stuff, graduating, getting their grades in order. So don't expect any commitments anytime soon. But you never know. There could always be a 2021 prospect who could pop and make a decision. Amarius Mims, Barrett Carter, Jaden Thomas, guys like that in 2021. Micah Morris, who I think might be close to making this decision. So we'll see how things go there. But that's really about it. Thank you for listening again. If you have any other questions, hit me up on Twitter. Make sure you're on Dog Post. We're pumping out a lot of team content, recruiting content every single day. Make sure you're watching these videos to make sure you are all updated on Georgia team and recruiting news. Appreciate it, guys. I will see y'all next week. Thanks for watching.